listening to the Becoming More Me podcast with me, Theresa Lear Levine. You're already enough. But if you're anything like me, you thrive when you're stretching and developing yourself, creating more of the person you feel called to be. This podcast is here to inspire and support you. Let's release the negative, reinforce the positive, and elevate our vibe together as we tap into our limitless potential to transform and grow. Hey, and welcome to Becoming More Me. Our episode this week is going to be focusing on how we get things done and how we feel while we're doing it, and the pressure we put on ourselves, and our ability or inability to do nothing. That's a big one for me. I don't know about you guys, but busyness has been over hyped up for far too long. And in other times in my life, I was definitely that person where you'd ask me, how are you doing? And I'd say, busy. I hate that answer. I'm like sad for people that answer that way, because that's not even how you're doing. It's almost like, who are you? And then you say a profession. Like, I don't know. It's not really a reflection of who you are. You are not busy. We can get busy, that's for sure. But I really like how one of my friends has reframed that as robust. Nikita Big Pen, who I've had on the show, she will always say, you have a very robust life. I'm like, yes. So I've really adopted that. Not that I've used the whole busy thing for a while, but I will often say, I chose this. People will be like, oh man, 4 kids, you must be so busy. Like, well, sure. There's definitely a lot going on, but I chose this. I chose this life. I chose to be an entrepreneur. I chose to have my businesses. I chose to have my kids. I chose to have my dogs. I chose to have my house. I am blessed and privileged to have a lot of the things that I have chosen, but those things also add a lot of robustness to my life. And I just am in constant reminding of myself, hey, you chose this life. This is your choice. So be grateful and appreciative of all these robust things happening. But there was a time. Okay, so I've always been a to-do list person ever since high school, probably, when I would actually keep lists. And they might be lists of goals that I had. They might be lists of jobs I wanted to pursue. They might be lists of things I felt like I needed to do that day, week, or month. It became more of that as I got older, that's for sure. But in the beginning, it was a lot more fun stuff. So I've always liked lists, and my ADHD I've talked about a lot. When I was younger, I didn't think of myself as someone with ADHD. Just thought of myself as whatever, it wasn't like some weird challenge I was up against. It was kind of like, hey, this is kind of how I think, how I work. And that's really honestly how I like to think about it still. Just kind of like, hey, this is how my brain works. This is how I approach things. And this is how things work best for me. And I'm always willing to try new things too. But my brain has always liked being able to get things on paper. My brain has also always liked the paper part of it. So even in this digital age, I keep a digital calendar mainly for the convenience that it gives other people in my life, because I can share a calendar with my husband. I can share a calendar with my kids. There's a lot of good value to that. I can get reminders about things, also very helpful for my ADHD brain. But there is just something about laying things out on paper that is also scientifically proven to, have better follow through and better integration and everything else. And I definitely feel that. So I do the whole digital thing. But then every week, at least now, I still sit down. It's part of like my powwow practice that I have, that we call, my husband and I, that we sit down and we talk over the week. Well, part of that is that I have these sheets, and I've made it as efficient as possible as I can for me. by having like day of the week sheets that already have filled in certain things that happen on every Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday and so on. But there's a lot of things that are variable. So I fill in a lot of that by hand. And once I've filled those in and I really know that everything's done, it's kind of part of my brain dump process. That's when I sit down with my husband and I'm like, okay, so let's look at the week, figure out like who's picking up who, when, who's making dinner on what nights, where we have, challenges, or we're both kind of, stretched in too many directions. Where do we need to ask for help or cancel something or rearrange something, reschedule, that kind of thing. So I still love getting things down on paper, and I still probably make to-do lists that are a little unrealistic, but here's what's changed. So when my kids were a lot younger, I would make a to-do list that would literally take me in my most productive self, probably at least a week to do. And I'd put that on one day. And then I would go through the day with this crazy energy of like just this franticness of feeling like I needed to get it done and that I couldn't sit and I couldn't just be still. And yeah, this was a time when a lot of anxiety was going on. I was putting a lot of really weird pressure on myself looking back. I'm like, God, why did I do that to myself? Couldn't I have just been a little more compassionate? Like you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And I guess I used to think that I could pressure myself into making things happen and that was somehow better or more effective than relaxing through it and accepting at least the limitations of time. But I didn't. So at the end of every day, I was usually grumpy and frazzled and feeling like I had fallen short. And emotionally, that sucks. So thankfully, I have learned, I have grown, I have had so many different things change to the point where I am much more realistic about what I put on a list. I look at the pockets of time in my day to see, there'll be days when I only have 2 or 3 pockets of time that are 20 or 30 minutes. How could I possibly expect to, spend 2 hours writing my book or to do a certain task that takes longer than any of those pockets or the pockets combined? So I've gotten a lot more realistic and have also let go of the idea that every day needs to be a crazy productive day. I tend to have a flow to the way that I work and do things where several days a month, I will have these killer productive days when it's like so much gets done with such ease and joy and flow, and it just feels amazing. And I would have those days in the past too, but then I would feel bad when the next day didn't have the same energy flow or productivity. So I would beat myself up about it. Now I'm like, okay, so that's the norm, every week, every few weeks, whatever it is, I happen to have one of those days. And I often don't even know if it's going to be a weekend, a weekday, what it's going to be. It's just kind of like it starts to happen and things start to get on a roll. It's almost like when you do an appreciation rampage and you start to appreciate this and then that and then the next thing. And then all of a sudden, like you're in such an appreciative and grateful state. Well, sometimes my days are like that with my things I want to get done. And it's like, I do one thing and then I knock out the next and then the next. And then all of a sudden this thing that I've been stuck on forever just happens and works and comes together. And then another thing. And maybe, I throw in something that wasn't even on the list and get that done too. And it's amazing. But I have realized those days are not the norm. And that is okay. And I mean, gosh, how exhausted would I be if every day was like that? And I've realized that those days come faster and closer together the more I relax between them. Isn't that interesting? And the more that I let go of a need for that amount of productivity to happen every day, which is ridiculously unrealistic. So I am not saying to lower your goals. I am not saying to achieve less, but I am saying that when you can kind of love yourself through it, give yourself some grace and compassion, and allow the universe, the quantum field, to arrange things for you, it usually works out a heck of a lot better than when you're pushing against everything. Because I can tell you what, back in the day when it was like to-do list or die, I would push against everything. unhappy or sick kid, still going to get it done. I don't feel good, still going to get it done. Everybody is looking for my attention in doing something else. Nope, got this thing on my list. I'm going to get it done. It's awful to live that way. Don't do it. I know so many people out there are doing it. And that's why I bring it up and, very vulnerably put out there that was how I lived a decade ago. And some days it felt great, but most days it just really can tear down your confidence and your self-esteem and all the good feelings that I really had every right to feel and was robbing myself of. Don't do that to yourself. So the other thing I wanted to talk about today was just the idea of doing nothing, because during those times a while back when it was to-do list or die, it was hard for me to even sit down and watch a movie at home with my husband, get me out of the house. And even still, I'm much better at relaxing and just chilling when I'm out of my environment. A lot of that, I think, has to do with the fact that I work from home. I mom from home. I do a lot of things here under the roof of my house. I'm recording this podcast from home. And because of that, it often feels like there's a lot to do or that I could be doing when I'm home. Even this last weekend, it was a great weekend, and we had an awesome blend of time with friends and relaxing time. And my hubby and I even got out for a little date morning. And we also had a really productive weekend of getting things done around the house and of me getting some work caught up on and everything else. It was totally my favorite blend of time relaxing, time with friends, eating good food, trying new things, getting work done, having the house organized, and knocking things off of the to-do list. Like ultimate combination of things in my book. Love all of that. And it was that kind of weekend. But it was a weekend when we really, other than plans that we had with friends on Saturday night and some soccer games for the kids, there really wasn't anything else on the calendar. It was a pretty free, as a family of 6 weekend goes, pretty free weekend. So we were able to really kind of mold it in a lot of ways and go with the flow and everything else. And that's always really helpful. We also totally filled it. I'm talking to my husband last night as we're getting the kids ready for bed, taking a shower and just unwinding. And like, wow, it was a great weekend. But man, it turned into a very robust weekend full of stuff because we kind of filled it up. We had fun doing it. But we also took time to just sit and be. We took time to just lay together and be. And that is something that I'm so glad I've developed the ability to just sit with myself, sit with my thoughts, or to sit and release my thoughts and just literally do nothing. And I think so many people struggle with that because they don't feel safe enough to stop. And I think that was my thing for a very long time, not feeling safe enough to stop, as if the world was suddenly going to come to an end or some really uncomfortable things were going to come up and need to be dealt with if I stopped. And it is a really powerful practice when you feel safe enough to stop and you can literally just exist and be okay. There's a Dutch concept for what I'm talking about. It's called Niksen, Niksen. And it's literally just doing nothing, being idle. And like we're so in the conditioning of needing to be doing something all the time that can be super uncomfortable for a lot of us. But I implore you to feel what it is that's uncomfortable about that. It's going to be different for everybody. But when you actually just sit, try it and go out in your yard or I don't know, go wherever it is that you can just be away from what makes you feel like you need to be living that robust life and see what starts to come up for you. Or see if you're able to just clear your thoughts and just exist. But be conscious because those things that start coming up, those are the things that like from an EFT tapping standpoint, from a coaching standpoint, all of that, like that's the stuff where you want to start digging in. Like, get a little curious about what that thought is about, or why you feel unsafe having it, or what you might be able to do so that you feel safer having it. All that kind of stuff, in my opinion, is so fun to explore and has such really cool results that are perhaps even unexpected when you do start peeling away at it and seeing what is really there or what you're worried about, because slowing down is really hard for a lot of people these days. But I think what also is hard is feeling like your life has become some kind of a groundhog day and not in any good way, and wanting a change from that. And the practice of doing nothing it's time for your creativity to come to the surface. It's time to just allow your thoughts to wander. It's time to realize, hey, you know what? I'm actually in control here. I can choose this. It's okay to choose this. And today doesn't have to be another Groundhog Day. And I can actually break these habits by doing something new, even if that something new is doing nothing. That's really, really powerful. More than it probably sounds like, because you're like, oh, she's asking me to do nothing. What? And that's supposed to like help me to prevent stress and burnout and all this other stuff and to get more creative. Yes, it is. Indeed, it is. And it does. So I'm just saying, try it. You don't have to like have a whole day of this Niksen, but I would suggest maybe 5 or 10 minutes a few times a week, and that's not even to say that you can't do something while you're doing nothing. So if you're somebody that just really feels like you need to be productive, maybe you start a load of laundry, and while that's doing its thing, you do nothing. And at least you feel like something's getting done. Or you start a pot of coffee, and in the few minutes that takes to brew, you do nothing. But the coffee's getting made, right? You're going to enjoy it afterwards and get to your day and everything else. But for a few minutes, just allow yourself to be with yourself. All of these things, for me, are productivity hacks. They're all the things that I poo-pooed when I was younger because all I could see was that doing things got things done. And I couldn't understand that as I strengthened my mind-body connection, my spirituality, understanding my emotions, all of those kind of things, that I could go from needing to do from just being and things getting done and happening and aligning and transpiring and becoming. And you have to trust. You have to kind of fall into it. You have to be willing to stop trying to be the one that's controlling everything getting done, and to allow the universe, the quantum field, to collaborate with you, to receive your wishes, your desires, your dreams, your goals, and then allowing it to come up with the best way to bring it to fruition, which might not be the way that you're forcing. But whenever I'm talking with the universe about what I'm wanting to bring into my life, I'm always asking for that or something better. The universe will know. All you need to do is ask. But yeah, I'd love to hear how you guys find ways to do nothing. If you have practices you like for doing nothing, if you have results you've loved from doing nothing, if you feel like it's actually boosted your productivity, your mood, you reduced your stress, helped you out, then I'd love, love, love to hear about it. And also any, to-do list hacks that you guys have or that you want. I've got a ton. I mean, I have been a to-do list fanatic for decades, and I'm always evolving the way that I do it because I want to honor my time and I don't want to waste my time. So I'm always trying to come up with more effective ways to do it. But again, for me, like I said before, that keeping the pen and paper a part of it are really important to me. And I noticed that when I eliminate it, because I have tried going all digital, I forget to do things and things get a little bit lost. I will say this as kind of a hack and a final thing. I keep my longest master lists of things electronic. And I do make sure I have an electronic version of everything, because, my week or two of paper stuff that I've written out, I could lose that. And I wouldn't want to lose all the things that I know are important to do, all the time that I've spent, doing brain dumps and figuring out what's next and what's important to me and prioritizing. I would hate to have that lost, or, who knows, something gets spilled or whatever, and that's compromised. So there's always a version of what needs to be done that's kind of backed up for me. But the one that I tend to work from is the paper one. So I don't know if anybody else works in that similar fashion, but I do suggest at least embracing the digital stuff for the purpose of making sure you don't lose it. And for me, that also adds in a layer of mental safety, that feeling that it's handled, it's written down, it's saved. I can't lose it. Therefore, when it is time to do nothing, when it is time to relax and watch a movie with my husband or my family, when it is time to just sit at the soccer game and watch my kids do their thing, or whatever else I want to enjoy, I can do it with a clear mind. I can do it knowing that, okay, well, I wrote down all the stuff that had to get done. It's there. I've, programmed it into reminders, or it's on my lists or whatever else. Therefore, I can relax without guilt or anxiety or feeling like, oh God, did I forget to do whatever? I don't have to have those little nagging feelings like, oh, I can't remember if I was supposed to fill in the blank. We all have those things, but those don't get me anymore. I don't feel like, oh crap, I forgot to, go to an appointment, or I forgot this or that, because it's really well handled the way that I handle my schedule now. So if you have awesome ways that you love to handle your schedule, your to-do lists, whatever, I love hearing about them. I'm always interested in new ideas, but I'm also not distracted by new ideas anymore. Used to be every year, it'd be like the new journal or the new calendar or the new, whatever, to track things. And I realized that was really kind of a shiny object syndrome for a while, thinking that the way that I kept the list was going to be the solution, when really it's the way that it gets executed that's the solution. And just making sure that you have something so that you feel like it's handled or will get handled. That's the most important thing. So thanks for listening, guys. Have an awesome week. Thanks so much for listening. If you loved this episode, please share it with a friend or post on social media and tag me so I can personally connect and thank you. Until next time, keep taking bold and brave action steps towards becoming more of who you want to be in this world. You are capable, you are worthy, and you are enough. Keep shining your light.